Welcome to another edition of Hey Bobby with Senior VP of the Cleveland Guardians, my good friend Bobby DiBiasio with us here on 93.5, 1590 WAKR.net, our Facebook page, and our YouTube channel, brought to you by our good friends at JW Dodano Electric. Bobby, all-star break, but I thought you and I could look at the first half of this baseball season. I think maybe Tito's best job, and he's had a lot of them, as the manager of the Guardians. 10 rookies on the roster. And this team, in my point of view, I think has a legitimate chance to take this division. But let's go to your area right here and talk about the first half of this season for our team.
Well, I think you mentioned it, Ray. We do have a legitimate chance. We're in the race for the AL Central title. I think we talked about it way back in March that we thought, at least we internally thought, it was going to be a 3-team race with us, the White Sox, and the Twins. And that's the way it is shaped up. We're only 2 games back of the Twins. The White Sox are only 3 games back of the Twins. We're 2.5 back in the wild card, final spot in the wild card race. With the youngest team in Major League Baseball. And as you mentioned, 10, I believe the number's 10 young men who have made their Major League debut during this season. And so what Tito and his coaching staff and the veterans on this baseball team, the few that there are, truly making sure that, these young guys understand there will be peaks and valleys. We'll go through stretches where we'll win a ton of games over a 2-3 week period, and then we'll dip into, losing, 5-6 in a row. That's just the nature of the beast in our business, and it's a product of youth. So I think we all feel real good. We're going in to the second half of the season with a winning record and right in the fight.
Bobby, coming out of spring training in the first month of the season, this is a team that's built on starting pitching and pitching alone. I think a lot of people forgot about the shortened spring training, how much task that put on the pitching staff. In the first month of the season, the starters struggled a little bit, but I think a lot of people forgot that they didn't have much of a spring training. And then once the starters got into the routine and got stretched out, you saw the starting pitching staff, and we're still seeing it mid-May, end of May, really start to show their stuff. I think that's been the biggest push of this team in the last 6 weeks.
No question, pitching has been the strength of this franchise for a good decade now. It was inconsistent during the first half with flashes of brilliance. With Tristan McKenzie, his last few outings have just been unbelievable. He's really found himself. He had a couple hiccups against the Twins there, and then he just came right back and dominated in his last 3 starts. Shane Bieber, has had a little bit of inconsistency, but he's rounding into shape. Ending the first half with a rain out, pretty ironic, I guess, that we ended the first half of the season going into the All-Star break with a postponement. We were playing well. You had Shane Bieber on the mound against the Tigers. That was a tough one to lose because, the way things were going, we thought we had ourselves another one in the win column if things, flowed our way as we thought they would with, again, the former Cy Young Award winner on the mound. We just need, hopefully, this starting rotation to find itself. If they can find themselves for the second half of the season, Aaron Savale get healthy, Zach Plesac be a little bit more consistent, although we need to give him runs. He hasn't had much run support this year. But if we can get our guys a little bit more consistent in that starting rotation, again, we're going to be right in it to the very end. 3 All-Stars, Ray. I think that's a fun thing to truly hang our hat on, that Andres Jimenez having an opportunity to start in the All-Star game. That's pretty cool. You knew Hosey, who just continues to show he's an elite performer in our game today. And then Emmanuel Clase, who is an elite closer. There's a comfort level when it comes to knowing that the back end of your bullpen is a check mark. It's automatic that we have a guy that is as good as anybody in the game today. We need to give him more opportunities to save games. So some fun things with the 3 All-Stars and the emergence of Andres and Emmanuel, and makes you feel good as you move into the second half of the season here.
We're with Senior VP of the Cleveland Guardians, Bobby DiBiasio, another edition of Hey Bobby. Bobby, it can't be underestimated because we can talk about, for example, the 10 rookies on the team. But when you look at leadership that is needed for any team to win, you've got the best manager in baseball, and you've got one of the best players in baseball. When you look at defense, base running, stealing, hitting, clutch hitting, Jose Ramirez, those two guys really set the stage for these other guys to follow. And I think that's a really big key with the success of this team. Tito, Jose Ramirez.
Absolutely. Jose doesn't just by the way he goes out and plays hard every day. I've always said to anybody who would listen about the game of baseball in 40 years plus years of watching big leaguers and watching teams, how you construct a team, what's the chemistry of a team, the identity of a team. I've always said that it's imperative, absolutely imperative, that the best player on your team has to be your best person. And that just permeates the clubhouse, that their character, the way they go about, the way they respect the game, their teammates, the professionalism. And Jose has that. He's the leader of this baseball team, and he's got an incredible respect for the game of baseball and his teammates and how he goes about playing. And so others need to fall in line with that. They can't go veer off and think they're bigger than the game or bigger than the team. Not when your best player isn't thinking that way. And when your best player is thinking that way, then you have the time when teams split to be more about me instead of we. So we're very fortunate in that regard. As far as Tito, yeah, we all know he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. It's going to be a real fun time for all of us heading to Cooperstown, which you have now thankfully had an opportunity to visit and be a part of an induction ceremony. I'm headed there this weekend. Jack Graney is going in as the Ford C. Frick Award winner. He was a broadcaster player for our franchise way back when, and some first in Jack Graney's illustrious career, that he was the first player ever to go from the playing field to the broadcast booth. Somebody had to be the first to go into the radio booth that actually wore a uniform, and that was Jack Graney, and he did so for many years, calling Cleveland Indians games. And then he was actually the first guy to walk the home plate with a uniform number on his back, top of the first at Yankee Stadium. A couple other things that he did along his great career. We're going to be with some family members of his in Cooperstown Saturday. He goes in with Tim Kirchin, goes into the baseball writers wing of the Hall of Fame, who one of the greatest, most passionate baseball guys you ever want to meet, does such an incredible job promoting our sport. It's going to be a real fun weekend in Cooperstown. So when Tito gets there, it's going to be fun. We always know that our guy in our dugout is a little bit better than the guy in their dugout.
No doubt about it. Speaking of Hall of Fame, and yes, indeed, I was up there in the month of June, and one of the plaques that I read was Mr. Bob Fellers. and his plaque, of course, in the Hall of Fame. Bobby, I thought we could take a couple of minutes because it was this week, back in 1936, that Mr. Bob Feller, at that young age, made his debut for the Cleveland Indians in a relief role that day. You were great friends with Mr. Feller. I thought maybe for a moment or two, you can reflect on Bob Feller and that debut, and of course, what he meant to the Cleveland franchise.
Well, honored and privileged to have called Mr. Feller a dear friend, one of the few that had the, again, honor and privilege to speak at his memorial service, provide a eulogy. One of the highlights of my career was knowing Bob, and he would always say I was his boss, which was always pretty funny to me. But people need to remember, as you said, yes, this week is his major league debut, and people need to really understand the context of that. He's 17 years old. He has yet to graduate from high school, from Van Meter High School in Iowa. And here he is on a major league diamond, making his major league debut in the second game of a doubleheader at Washington. The team lost that game, but he pitched an inning, walked 2, struck out 1. But the end of that year in 36, again, 17, the end of September, he goes back home to get on the school bus with his sister Marguerite to finish his senior year of high school. So just think about, and his high school graduation is broadcast nationally on NBC radio. That's what a huge star Bob Feller was. Back in those days, Babe Ruth had just left baseball. Bob Feller had just arrived, took the mantle of stardom. And I'll talk about his statistics in a second of why that was. But during that period of 1938 to 41, it was he and Shirley Temple were the two real youth stars in America at that time. I mean, larger than life kind of people at that age, teenage years, 19, 20 years old, on the cover of Life magazine, Time magazine. Again, his high school graduation broadcast live across the nation. But he ends up 5-3 that year. He struck out 76 in 62 innings. And he had 8 starts, appeared in 14 games. We have 5 complete games in those 8 starts, even at 17. So pretty remarkable. But that year, what brought him out to everybody in the public was this farm boy with the fast arm, powerful arm, striking out everybody. His first start was in August of 36. He fanned 15 St. Louis Browns. I think he fanned 10 in the first 5 innings. Then a month later in September, he struck out 17 Philadelphia Athletics, which was an AL record, and it tied Dizzy Dean's major league record. That AL record stood for something almost nearly 30 years by Rube Waddell. And here comes this 17-year-old kid, which they ended up creating the nickname, the Heater from Van Meter, and Rapid Robert, and Bullet Bob, depending upon which paper you would read and which writer wanted to add their own flair to it. But just think about that, striking out 17 Philadelphia Athletics in September and going home and jumping on the high school bus. It truly is pretty remarkable.
Mr. Bob Feller made his major league debut this week, 1936. And that puts a lid on this week's edition of Hey Bobby with Senior VP of the Cleveland Guardians, Bobby DiBiasio, brought to you by JW Dodado Electric. Bobby, as always, my friend, thank you for carving out some time, and we'll get together real soon again. Thanks again, Bobby.
Yes, sir. Take care, Ray. Go Guardians.